Yeah, so if you're a Catholic, you are praying, so you're having this discussion with God, and if you're a very sensitive practitioner, then you might look in and kind of hear God's answer. And there were saints also that would hear an answer or see a light or have a vision. So that's kind of how this prayer is going. I'm asking or I'm telling something to God, and then God manifests. So it's not very different in the Buddhist world. uh, it's just basically the notion of God that is changing because there is no like magical, unexplainable being as a person in Buddhism. What we would call God is pretty much emptiness or Buddha nature or the eternal Buddha and many other things that we have covered in our previous sessions. So basically, a Buddhist prayer is you having a dialogue with your own wisdom. So you are looking within and kind of trying to let your primordial wisdom arise and advise you. Um, One very simple way that doesn't involve any words to do this is, let's say you have a big decision to make in your life and you're not sure whether to turn left or to turn right. You could just go and sit on your cushion, and I call that trying to feel the wind. Kind of look within, relax yourself, look within, and try to see where your intuition is trying to bring you, where your emotions are trying to point. Look at what your head is trying to tell you. And after a while, you will kind of see what makes sense and what doesn't, and what feels right. And that's your wisdom kicking in. So that's one way to do a silent prayer in Buddhism. Another way to pray in Buddhism is what we have done, like the Samantra prayer, and that's pretty much an aspiration. And actually, it is called the aspiration prayer of Samantabhadra. So, and in this case, we are Samantabhadra, as we have explained in the last meeting. Samantabhadra refers to the Buddha, and whenever you hear I, the Buddha, or that the Buddha did this or did that, you could consider that it's yourself because we all share a common human nature. So you could decide that this aspiration of Samantabhadra is actually your aspiration. So when Samantabhadra wishes light upon himself, you wish it upon yourself. When he wishes it for others, you also wish it for others. So that's kind of how that would work in the context of an aspiration. Now there's another kind of, this one is almost magical, if we get into the world of mantras. So mantras usually have a meaning that is taught by a master. If we go, for example, just with the simple mantra, Om. So Om is actually three sounds. It's A, U, and So and each sound means something. The A is the primordial A that a baby naturally speaks after he's born. When babies cry, they go ah, and all of the first words that they will speak will go like mama, papa, dada. In all cultures of Earth, babies tend to speak the vowel A. And so that's the A of Aum. That's like the natural exaltation that the universe is producing. The U. So if you want to form the sound U in your mouth, if you do just ah, your mouth is completely open and you're not really doing anything with your mouth or with your tongue. It's just the air going in. So ah, almost like as if you're exhaling. But if you are doing ooh, you are shaping the sound with your mouth. So ha represents the ground from which everything is born. Ooh is the like it's the subtle body, the play of the energy that is shaping the world. And when to do you have to close your mouth, and that's the form realm. So you have just put into shape the entire So basically, it's an act of creation. You went from nothing, like from natural nothingness, and then you use the energy of your muscle to change it into a oo and then a So you have created something tangible from emptiness. And that is the original meaning of the mantra. So it can be a profound teaching if you're practicing Vipassana, because it helps you reflect on the nature of reality and how you interact with your environment and your role in the universe and all of this. So it's a simplified give and take that's going on, that you can feel as you recite the But it is also a tool to empty your mind. For example, if you go with a more complex mantra, and I'll go just a little bit more complex, but let's say Om Mani Padme Hum, and the way you would practice that is you would recite endlessly Om Mani Padme Hum, 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 Mani Padme Hum. So if you start doing this, you will find that as you practice this way and you focus on your breath, there is little room for anything else in your mind. So you are basically kind of brainwashing yourself with a meaning that is especially important, or a teaching that is especially important, by repeating it. And at the same time, you are getting all of the stuff that you don't want in your mind. So for me, a mantra is like an emergency measure. If you really cannot control your anxiety, and for somehow you are obsessed about, for example, losing your job, then you could decide that you will get into a mantra. And it doesn't really matter at this point if it's an emergency measure. It doesn't really matter what it says. You could make up your own mantra. It could be a phrase. I used to do that by using like the first syllables of a bunch of words in a phrase, so that it contracted like a big paragraph in a shorter mantra. And then this has meaning for you, so you can repeat it. But once I met an army veteran who had trouble with PTSD, and his mind would kind of go back to the war all the time, and he would cry, and he would have episodes like this. And he was not a Buddhist, so I wanted to make that a very quick teaching. So I told him about the mantra, and I said, okay, since you don't know any of these mantras, just remember this: strawberry jam. And I said, whenever you see that you're losing it, that your mind is going somewhere that you don't want to, sit and start repeating in your head, strawberry jam, strawberry jam, strawberry jam, strawberry jam, which is ridiculous. But while he's focusing on strawberry jam, he's absolutely not focusing on the war. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's like first aid for your head. So that would be somehow another way, another prayer that helps you reconnect with the peace when you are losing it. Whoops. Anything else you would like to explore? Does that answer your question, basically?
Yes, and thank you. I don't think I have any other questions for that.
All right.
That was really good. I just wanted to add one thing that confused me at the beginning. There's a lineage of Buddhism, and I think it's only really popular in China, maybe a little bit Japan, called Pure Land Buddhism. And they specifically worship a particular Buddha, not Gautama Buddha, not Siddhartha Gautama. Yes, exactly. And I'm pretty sure they have a whole wide range of prayers specifically for communicating with him. I think part of their teaching is that forming a relationship and believing in him, or not believing in him, believing in his teachings is part of their path to liberation. So I think that caused me a little bit of confusion in the beginning. I think they actually sort of do pray to him maybe more in a traditional
okay.
sense when we think of like Western prayer.
But the thing is, Scotto, and this took me time to understand, is that in Asia, Buddhism is organized religion on a large scale. They have like 3 billion practitioners. So
Ooh.
the way that like our Catholic practices became very superficial in the West because of the scale and because basically I guess anybody was a practitioner, anybody was a priest. This kind of happened in those countries as well. So I've been told by very high monks from Asia that American practitioners were often better, and European as well, were often better than Asian practitioners because they took it so much more seriously and they took so much more time to study it instead of just going and lighting an incense sticks and doing the ritual. Like they don't,
Yeah.
because it's consumed on a huge scale. Oftentimes they don't bother to dig deeper in it. It's just the family's practice and it's been for generations. Right? So it's funny because earlier today I was touring the world with a Japanese person who's a Protestant, and he came and he was asking me about, and he lives in Japan right now, and he was asking me about Buddhism, and he was telling me that he would like to learn Buddhism from us. So you see how that works. It's a bit
Wow.
funny to me.
Full circle.
So do you mean that
Yeah,
Buddhism in a way is like a bit how do you say it, commercialized, or like what's the
Sure.
word for
It's
it?
it's just mainstream over there. So because like anything mainstream, it kind of gets diluted. So and that is a teaching in itself. And the teaching I think is Buddhism is not something to be organized. It's something personal that you do. It's something that you practice for yourself and intimately with yourself, and then it has impacts on other people if you do it right. But if you look at any organized religion, we could speak about Islam as well. I have nothing against any of them. I think they all have very beautiful points and practices. But the thing is that when it becomes mainstream, it gets corrupted on a large scale too, and it loses a lot of people start missing the point basically. So I know Pure Land Buddhism, and I know a lot of stuff relating to Amitabha, and if you read it with a magical mindset, then you will think that basically they're talking with. Then that's what people who get in contact with those prayers understand too. That he's talking to this guy called Amitabha. But then, if you're properly trained, you will realize that actually it's an inner dialogue, and you're talking about Amitabha is Samantabhadra, is again the primordial Buddha, and the pure land is the emptiness. So it's all the same thing basically, but with different rituals, and some confuse people more than others. In Tibet, it's amazing what people believe about Buddhist yogis. Some think that they can stop birds with their mind, that they can levitate, that they can walk through, make a
Airbend?
hole in the wall of stone. You know. By the way, I did publish a documentary in the channel called The Yogis of Tibet. If you have a chance to look at this, and you will hear some of those strange beliefs that people hold about yogis. Yes, Casper.
Oh, well, I was just thinking maybe they also believe they can airbend. I was making a joke about Avatar again. Sorry.
I was thinking of how it meant, what it meant for me. I was initiated in Drikung Buddhism, in Tibetan Buddhism, and tradition was very important, and transmission was very important. A mantra was a protector of the mind, but it had to be, like you were initiated. You had a ceremony in which you were given this mantra, and you were allowed to use it with the blessings of all the teachers before, and this would like give you the protection, or the protection of the mind. That's what the
Right.
mantra was
Right.
said
So
to me.
what's very interesting in Tibetan Buddhism is this aspect of lineage where you receive not only the mantra but the blessing that comes with it, is that it makes it special because it's been passed from. So you take it more seriously. Basically, you will consider it more sacred, and you will do probably that practice even more mindfully than if you were just repeating strawberry jam, as I was illustrating earlier. Both work, but obviously, if the mantra and the teaching comes from somebody that you respect and they tell you this one will work very well for you and for your case, then you're going to be very careful in your execution. And I think in Buddhism, everything is sacred anyway, so anything should be ended from one another in a sacred way, because it teaches us to respect the world, the sentient beings, and all things in the world as well. So it's perfectly valid that a mantra would be blessed and sacred, because even this VR platform is, if you think about it, it's what's allowing us to meet today. And we need to learn as human beings to really feel gratefulness about everything that we use, and it's making our life better. So for me, well, one of my root masters, actually I took refuge in the Drikung Kagyu Tibetan sect as well in the beginning with Lama Lobsang, which is a Lama that I had in common with Julia. And by the way, she's always very humble about her path. Julia's my wife, by the way, for those who don't know. And so Julia's been translating for some high lamas and receiving them, and we went on retreats with them over in Ecuador. She has translated the material for the Nalanda Bodhi University, headed by Dzogchen Pomna Rinpoche as well. And so she knows a lot about the scriptures, and she's practiced for a long while. She was also a Reiki master, and well, she knows a lot about alternative health. If these things interest you, speak with Julia. But what I was saying is that in the Drikung Kagyu and Tibetan Buddhism in general, there are many rituals. My root master, which is Soyam Trungpa Rinpoche, had written a book actually called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. And it's a book teaching people that rituals are not that important. Like, do not get attached to the colors and the shapes and the statues and this guy that is so nice, but really, like, do your job, do your inner work, do your meditation, bring your practice in real life, because that's where it's at. That's where real Buddhism is. The rituals are a pedagogy. They're means to an end. Like, if I have a problem with my anger, and I'm given a practice that will help me visualize all the consequences of my anger and also all the antidotes to my anger, then that will probably help me. If I do it long enough, it will become a treatment. So I think in many ways, rituals is what psychologists would call behaviorism. And Buddhism works really in those two ways. Rituals will change your behavior so that your behavior changes your mind, and they will also change your mind so that your mind changes your behavior. So it's like really two schools of psychology working together to help you get results faster. But if you just focus on kind of faking a behavior, if you just do the ritual and you're not having any effects, any positive effects on your mind anymore, then you're pretty much sticking with the ritual for no reason. Or if you're so fascinated by the colors and the visualization that you don't even understand how they apply to you, then you're also missing the point. So we have to be very careful with when you see anything that looks like worship or that looks like a rite, ask yourself if it's needed, if it's valid, if it's going to have a good impact for you. I think there really is no replacement with being in touch with your own inner wisdom. And that's also a teaching of the Buddha, to doubt everything and challenge everything and make sure that it makes sense for you. So That would be my piece on this. And if you want to go, I would say beyond Buddhism, I would recommend a master that is called Jiddu Krishnamurti, who's to me the greatest teacher that ever walked this earth. He died a few, well, not a few, but many years ago now. And for those who don't know about him, he was actually raised by the Theosophic Society as the second coming of the Christ. And what they did with so what they did with this kid, this Indian kid that they found on the beach and that they found really special, is that they got all the best spiritual masters of the world, and they had them surround him and teach him and bring him up. And Krishnamurti's story is that he became very, very wise, and by 18 years old, he disbanded from the Theosophic Society, saying, "This is organized religion. This is people looking to teach others. I am not a guru. I am not looking to have followers. I just want to teach about the truth." So he became a one-man show, and he dedicated his life to teaching the entire earth, traveling everywhere. I'd say for like 60 or 70 years. And he produced an incredible amount of talks, movies, and books. And Krishnamurti is hard, is the type of guru that will say, why do you go to God? Why do you go to books? Why do you go to rites? And let's think together how you could find for yourself. So pretty much all of his talks are an aspect of life where he invites you to find for yourself. And he is the spiritual master that I have the most studied. So I would highly recommend that you look into it if you really want to get into a better life and improve your wisdom. That's like naked wisdom without any fireworks, no bells and whistles.
It's kind of interesting.
Name, in the Discord.
Yes, Nils?
Can you send the name through the Discord when we're done with this?
Yep. I will. Actually, let me take 3 seconds and do it right away. Otherwise, I will completely forget about that. Are you in the Shoshin or in the Samogakaya Discord?
Or what do you say?
Are you in the Shoshin server or in the Samogakaya server?
I'll check real quick.
Well, anyway, I can do that later. It doesn't matter. So anyway, Jiddu, if you, just in case I forget, so it's Jiddu like Jiddu, and Krishnamurti, Krishna like Krishna, Krishnamurti. So 2 words, Jiddu Krishnamurti. So very, very fascinating master. Yeah.
I heard him described as oh, sorry.
No, please.
I was just gonna say, I heard him described. I haven't looked up much on him before, but I heard he's like a sad guru that actually gets to the point. But he described Krishnamurti like that to me.
The difference is that he's actually enlightened.
Yeah, that actually gets to the point.
Yeah. So yeah, I like that. It's no fuss. All right. So may we do a little shamatha session, maybe? I think Emma's not rejoining from the looks of it. I think her problems. Yeah, she's telling me it's still broken. So all right. This is all unexpected for me, so I was not really in the right mood. I gotta calm myself a little bit, so let's start by breathing and settling down. do something. I'm gonna turn off the music. Let's just listen to the silence. You say. Oh, I can't. Am I under control of the... Alright, so let's listen to the music for a few seconds. And actually, as your attention is following the music, try and pay attention to the gaps. Try and see how it is the silence between the notes, between the little birds that are singing. It actually gives it beauty. As we listen to the music, let's bring our attention to the top of our head. Let's relax completely the muscles of our scalp. Around our if you're in VR, you want to maybe adjust your headset, make sure it's sitting comfortably, that you don't have like extra tension on the eye. Make sure you are able to release all of the muscles of your face as well. Your cheeks, your chin. Your head should feel soft from the front to the back. And the top of your neck, make sure that this is very relaxed and straight. Relax your shoulders. Relax your arm, both of your arms down to the tip of your fingers. And let the life flow through your limbs. Feel the warmth enveloping your head and your shoulder. Let this warm feeling go down your back. Relax your back and your spine completely. Make sure there is no tension in the hips. Your legs are relaxed. Let your feet and all of your limbs are soft and comfortable. Feel the warmth pervading your entire. Let's take 2 minutes just to feel soft and warm, calm. You still feel tense mentally. Let the muddy water clear. Allow the waves in your mind to calm down. Turn the raging ocean to a mirror-like lake. And now start the timer. Okay, I think I'm gonna do something different, just for fun. I will teach you a yogic breathing exercise. Comes from the 7 yogas of Patanjali. So we will breathe backwards in this exercise. And here are the instructions. As you inhale, you will count to 1. And as you exhale, you will count to double. So I inhale, 1. I exhale, 1, 2. Then you go up 2 when you inhale. So I'm inhaling, 1, 2. Then I exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you will do that until the count of your inhaling goes up to 10. And when it reaches 10, it means that your exhalation is going to last 20, to the count of 20. So you will feel it's a little bit unnatural. But what it will do, actually, is that you will breathe in and out about once every 30 seconds when you're at that point. And I mean, if you have trouble breathing, don't overdo it. If you can reach 8 easily without struggling and you're comfortable at 8, you can stay at 8. But try up to 10 and then 20. And once you manage to do that, once you reach the count, if it goes very well for you, start counting in the gap. So the first time between the inhalation and the exhalation, count to 1. Second can count to 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3. So when you reach the maximum, keep your breathing at 10 seconds inhaling, 20 seconds exhaling, and you increase the count between the in-breath and the out-breath with each movement as much as you can. Yogic masters that practice that manage to breathe once or twice a minute, or once in 2 minutes, and without any problem. It slows the mind, it slows the breathing, it slows the heart, it slows pretty much the entire metabolic process, but it's not super easy to master. So, I don't know where you're at in your counts, but I will start mine now with 1. Say 1, 2. Inhaling. 2. Say 2. difficult to talk and do that at the same time, so I'll just focus on my breathing and you carry on. As you practice this exercise, it can help to visualize as you breathe in and out that some energy is moving up and down your spine, from the base of spine, top of your head, actually. So as you're fueling with air, you can feel the energy free flow going up and down. You can imagine energy spinning in a ball at the bottom of your spine, just under your navel, plexus, your heart, throat, your third eye, and the top of your head. Keep on inhaling to a count of 10, exhaling to a count of 20. You're able to do it, or whatever your comfortable count is. Then visualize still the energy moving up and down the spine, but now we will try to concentrate on the third eye. So that's the spot like right between your eyebrows. And a good way to feel it as you meditate is to kind of cross your eyes and look at the tip of your nose while kind of feeling that spot in your forehead between your eyebrow. So try to do all of these things together. Count your breath, your out breath. Feel the energy moving in your spine and feel like this ball of energy there in your. The position of the eye is just that helps you feel your pineal gland better. If you're not feeling, try adjusting the position of your eye a little bit. Close them a little bit tight or open them a little bit more, or cross them a little bit more, and you will find like a sweet spot where the feelings quite obvious actually. And you can do that, folks, with the aspiration that this is your own wisdom opening up. This third eye is being energized and is going to help you see through your delusion and ignorance in daily life. If you have trouble focusing, you have a phone, or if you feel compelled to mess with VR chat, or just observe that compulsion that you have. Because this compulsion, this attention deficit is pretty much happening all the time. And as you learn to observe it, you learn to manage it too. So it's very good meditation practice actually when you feel like doing something or you're doing something else during meditation, just bring yourself back to the breathing, to the peace. focus on the third eye. Breathe normal. Just follow the energy. You can even try moving it higher up now to the tip of your head. Try to have the energy playing from your third eye to the tip of your head, right where the bones are joining. Like the soft part of the skull, right? Feel the energy. I like to visualize a loop there, energy exiting from the top of my head and then coming back into my third eye. And breathe as you feel. You may feel more expansive if you do this practice, as if your entire body's kind of open. If you don't feel it and just unable to focus, just bring yourself back gently to the breath. It doesn't matter how many. Do it gently back to the breath, because that's the focus on the breath and follow it. Follow it down deep inside of you. Follow it out of you. Try to see how the energy that flows inside of you is connected with the energy that flows outside. You are in a perpetual process of exchange of information and energy with your surroundings. restart the count. Work your way back up to 10 seconds inhalation, 20 seconds exhalation. Focus your attention on the gap between the breath. You may try taking deep breath, kind of just let it go. You've been holding back on your exhalation. Now free yourself. You can go to the primordial thought. Just breathe in deep, and then do that a few times. And when you feel release and your system coming back to normal, you may start opening your eyes slowly. While trying to maintain the consciousness of how you exchange energy with your surroundings. Let the world meditate you. like, you could even try reciting a little mantra to see how it feels. Try reciting the just if you did try that, must have felt vibration going through your head, through your body. There's another manifestation of energy. Maybe you also remembered the definition of the mantra from earlier and could feel that it is an act of creation. Because if you think about it, you are giving birth to sound where there was no sound. It is creation. Now let's just slowly come back from meditation and let's try something with great care. Protect your mental state. Try and raise your avatar from the cushion. And let us just try to walk with our avatar slowly. Oops. The session has been done twice now. So let's just preserve the peace that we have accumulated. Do this, and let's go for a silent walk in the world. Let's walk in silence, and let's just observe the scenery while trying to maintain our peace. No running, just walk at a normal speed with your avatar. As you walk, try to observe the scenery and try to notice details that you have never seen before. Don't worry about the people accompanying us. Don't worry about anything else. Just look around and try to find details that you have missed before. you do this kind of practice in the real world, you will also focus on your steps, feeling the ground, your feet. Actually, I always advise people to try to look like a painter. Try to look at the scenery as if you needed to capture it and reproduce it exactly as it was. So pay attention to the light, to every small detail. Like if you wanted to paint a very exact representation of these things, what details would you need to include? In the same way that you look like a painter, you can try hearing like a musician. You can try imagine how if you had to play that little flute song that is playing in the back, how you would do it. Or you could listen to the birds singing and wonder where the sound is higher, when it is lower, how long the chirps last, what their rhythms are. So you can pay great attention to all the little sounds that we hear in the background. And if it helps, you could raise the world's volume also when you're in your setting. And you can focus on that. Basically, your five senses that can so often mislead you are also a great gateway to meditation. If you use them properly to commune with the world, if you look like a painter, if you listen like a musician, if you taste like a chef, all the subtleties of the food that you eat, if you try and smell like a perfumer, if you touch like a blind man, then just like the mantra, there will be no more room for misery in your mind, because your mind will be filled with the marvels of the world. So that's a very beautiful contemplative meditation that can be done anywhere, anytime. Just focus on the small details. Just like a computer has a keyboard and a mouse as inputs, the only inputs that we humans have are our eyes and our nose and our ears and our mouth and our hands, skin. So this is how you understand the world, through these things. So it's very important to observe these gates and see what's coming in and what you make of it. That's where it starts. That's where the mental process starts, through perception. So let's walk back to the coffee and try to pay attention to all the little details like that as we go back silently, and then we can break silence upon arrival. If you were to paint this area of the ground that I'm looking at right now, see how it has whites and grays and brown and oranges that become brown and yellow. And then all of these colors increase in brightness wherever there's a little sun ray hitting the ground. And then we have the shape of those leaves that are pointed but also curvy. And if you get really close and you look at these leaves, you can see the details of the the shape, like the skeleton of the leaf. I don't know how to explain that. And it has branches, and you can notice that this is actually a 2D picture that is dancing for us there. And if you look very closely, and this is, I think, how we should contemplate in the real world as well, like going very closely into the detail and see, what are these white things? Are they pebbles? Is this sand? Is this moss? Or is this grass? So, as you start asking all of those questions and looking at the world in this way, you will get into a sort of meditative absorption. And it was just a little illustration, actually, of how you could look like a painter. What you can do, now we are walking together at a certain pace, but in real life you can stop anywhere you want and stop to look at whatever object fascinates you and learn more about it. It's a much better way to learn than to learn from books, to be there and to have this little communion with the outside world. And see how you can easily find out that since the shadow is in that direction, then the sun of the world must be over there, in the opposite direction. These are things that we normally don't pay a lot of attention to. But even in VR, they have a kind of logic and they work, so we can understand subtle things about this virtual world just by looking at the details. I think our meditation bell is on auto repeat. If you pay attention as we walk closer to the coffee, you will notice a change in the lighting and in the mood. Try to spot it. All right, welcome. Come on in. All right, so did you spot the transition there as you came closer to the coffee?
Yeah, I did.
Right, so sometimes we're just running around the world and there is so much going on and we don't even notice it. So anyway, I guess I hope it wasn't too bad, guys. This was entirely improvised today and I mixed a bunch of things together. Did you manage to enjoy yourself a little bit?
Yeah.
Always do, yeah. Wouldn't have known.
Right, so anybody struggled with the Patanjali practice of breathing?
I could
No?
only get up to like about 16, but that was fine.
So you would do 8 in and then 16 out, and that was about it?
Yeah, that's as high as I could.
Right. Yeah, the 9 and 10 are a bit tough if you don't have strong lungs. But by doing it, you build stronger lungs and a stronger capacity for breathing. I guess it really works on the diaphragm. And,
It felt a bit weird in the
actually,
beginning.
it is weird because the main idea of this practice is starting to control something that you never do control. Like your breathing is happening naturally all of the time. And now all of a sudden it's like you're getting in the pilot seat and you're saying, okay, that's not how we're breathing today. Today we're kind of breathing backwards. Because I think naturally we tend to inhale a bit longer and we tend to exhale like one shot. So it really is backwards, the way that this breathing technique works, and it's kind of taming your body and mind at the same time as you focus on the breath and do the counts. And
In the beginning, it did increase my anxiety a little bit. I do have to say.
yes, yes, because it's not result oriented, but almost like you have things to control, and that's something to learn from this actually. That whenever you try to control the uncontrollable, it creates a little bit of anxiety. So it's better to let go and to not actually try to take over whatever is natural in our lives. This breathing technique is actually used, I think, in yogic practices, in the what they call the Kundalini practice. So it's a practice to open your chakras and let the energy flow through your body. And it is said that the energy is accumulated like a coiled snake in every of your chakras, and as you open them from the base of the spine to the upper and moving up towards the tip of your head, like the energy increases, and you can get a good, a very grandiose feel good experience from that some people confuse with enlightenment actually, but it's mostly like let's say a meditative experience, because it doesn't mean you have understood much just because you are releasing all that physical energy. However, the idea of opening your chakras is about eliminating division and resistance in your life. So as you start bringing attention to these parts of your body and what they mean, for example, if you're anxious to speak in public, then that would be your throat chakra. So you can, as you meditate and feel the energy in your throat, you can wonder, why is it that I'm anxious to speak in public? And kind of take apart this problem of yours. Or if people tell you that you talk too much and that you are way too extroverted, then you can think about that too, and about your throat chakra, and see how you can bring it back into balance. And as you bring your entire body back into balance, well, actually, you also reduce the resistance in the rest of your life experiences. So I thought I would get creative and share a bit of yoga today instead of doing just the traditional Buddhist thing that we usually do. So, any questions? Is there anything you guys would like to talk about? Or... Who's in this cafe for the first time?
Then me?
All right, then you need to see the second floor. So basically, this is the little cozy space that we have created in Shoshin for socializing, and we're kind of installing the practice of Dharma Cafe after the sessions now. We kind of gather here and have a little chat, or not, but trying to turn it into the hangout place. Hey, Scotto, I had a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I saw that you published the Thich Nhat Hanh documentary, Walk With Me. And,
Yes, I watched it last night.
well, I had published it like 3 posts above, but I did not watch it. So I was wondering if it's because my link was broken that you republished it, or is it just that we kind of found it at the same time?
Oh, if you did, I didn't see it. But I'll tell you one thing. Your Malarpa link is broken. I watched that, but I went and found it elsewhere.
Oh, Milarepa, you mean?
Yes. When's part 2?
I'm trying to find it. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I see that it's spinning, so probably it was removed. I'm gonna drop that right now. So, thank you. Actually, I have a lot more Buddhist movies and documentaries and all of that in my personal library. I just didn't get the chance to add them all, but I do appreciate the contribution.
Oh, I see it now. I'll get rid of my post. There it is.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if it's the same thing, or maybe they're in a different language, or one is incomplete, or whatever. But that's what ran through my mind when I saw your post.
Oh, it appears to be the same thing.
So I was talking about Krishnamurti earlier, and there's also an ebooks channel, and I think I have like 80 books, 80 ebooks by Krishnamurti. Would you guys be interested to see that? Should I post them there?
That'd be cool, but honestly, 80 books, you might have to point me in a direction to start.
They're all good, honestly. You can read them in order.
Pick any of them?
Like they're, well, they have compelling titles, so I guess just pick the title that you like the most. The way that he teaches is that one day you will give a talk and you will speak about like marriage and the institution of marriage and how you can work with that. Not that they will speak about school. So you always take like a very mundane subject and turns it into a truth teaching. So, and the books kind of reflect that. They made collections of talks on specific subjects, and that's reflected in the title. So I guess that's the would recommend you shop for it. Like if you find something that's more attractive to you, you could start with this one, and that's all. Although it is a bit heavy, I feel it's less heavy to read Krishnamurti than to listen or watch him, because he speaks very slowly, and he doesn't repeat. So when you read it, actually, if there's a paragraph that is a bit obscure, you can read it 4 or 5 times until you get it. And that doesn't happen too much in the video. Like, you get tired of it before you watch it 5 times. So
That makes sense.
So I feel Krishnamurti works better in books for me.
So I'm like completely new to this. So where should I start? Like, what book should I read first? Like, should it be one of those books?
Okay, I'm not sure if I ever told you guys, but what you are undergoing in the Sangha right now is a full monk's training. I'm not sure if it's in your session or another that I said it. So actually what we're learning in the Sangha, I'm taking you from A to Z. You are learning all the most important scriptures of the Tripitaka, with the entire Buddhism body of knowledge, if you will. So these are selected pieces that have been compiled over the last 700 years to reflect like what somebody needs to understand in Buddhism. It's not complete because some things will click and some will not. But after we're done doing the study together, you will kind of know what you would like to explore more. For example, some people think it's karma that they want to learn more, so then you can pick a specific book or a specific master that speaks about karma very well. Others will want to work under emotional intelligence, and that's what they're going to study afterwards. But really, the way that we've been doing these sessions is really from people that start from zero and we're building up. And when we're done, you're probably going to want to do it again, like on your own. You might pick the same book again and read it again, and you're going to understand something completely different. I can almost promise that. Because that's how Buddhism works.
Zenkei is talking about the Monday sessions, by the way. I don't know if I've made it to any of those yet.
Right. I don't think I've seen Morgan. Is it your first time ever, Morgan?
Yep.
All right. So not too spooked so far? How's it going for you?
No, it's good. It's surprisingly just like any other Sangha session in real life.
Oh, okay. So you're a practitioner already. What's your path?
Traditional Tibetan practice.
Which sect are you initiated into?
It's right off the tip of my tongue. To the
Nyingma, Gelugpa,
Nyingma.
Nyingma. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So that's my two favorites in Tibetan Buddhism is Kaju and Nyingma.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty open.
Teachings.
So I do mix it up a little bit. There is a lot of Zen influence as well in my practice. Yeah.
Well, my lineage, which is the Shambhala path, is actually it was a Tibetan monk, Shogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, from the Kaju lineage, and he's also.
I like his writings. I'm aware of him. Yeah.
All right, so yeah,
I think that's really cool.
He's a very fine, very subtle teacher. Actually, for me, Krishnamurti and Shogyam Trungpa, in what they say, they're very similar. They're not using the same words and the same culture, but you can see that these guys are very awake. And so Shogyam Trungpa, when he came into the West, he said, these people are liking me for the wrong reasons. They like me because I'm Tibetan and I'm exotic and I dress funny. So he changed all that and he started wearing suits and he created an initiative for psychology with a university. I'm trying to remember it's not coming. Anyway, so he blended psychology and Zen and Tibetan Buddhism. He stripped Tibetan Buddhism of a lot of the extra stuff, kept what mattered. Basically, he kept the highest teaching of the Nyingma sect and of the Kaju sect, which are Dzogchen, which is a secret teaching that you might have heard of, and Mahamudra, which is another semi-secret teaching, at least in the highest level that it is practiced. And he created his own thing on top of that called the Black Ashe, which is the secret teaching of the Shambhala lineage. And he blended that into a very simple and very direct path. As you were saying, Skado, Krishnamurti was straight to the point. Shogyam Trungpa is very much straight to the point also. And so he created this path which has like 5 steps. And you go through these 5 steps and basically you have learned everything that you need to. So Shambhala was the lineage that simplified Buddhism for us Westerners. And it might sound crappy, like it might sound like the illegitimate offspring of Buddhism. But actually, since it was made by such a strong master, such a good master, it was very well made and very well integrated. So if you are interested in Zen and Tibetan Buddhism, definitely Shogyam Trungpa, you should get your hands on those books and read everything you can. Pema Chodron, you must know also. She's quite excellent in that lineage as well.
She's great.
And then after that, yeah. But then after that, it gets more complicated. The son of Trungpa, uh, practiced on and off for a big part of his life, and he was transferred the lineage anyway, and he messed up a little bit. So there, he's the author of some scandals that happened recently, like unfortunately happens everywhere. But yeah, everything before that was quite good. Anyway, so I recommend Shambhala, and actually you have some Shambhala Publishing, which is a major editor of books that was affiliated, and you have also the Dharma Supply Store, Samadhi Cushions. All of these spring from the Shambhala foundations that Trungpa created. So yeah. So I thank you. I mean, I'm happy that you recognize like a real world session here in VR. We've been trying to give that kind of experience so that people kind of had a virtual temple to go to during the pandemic.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting that you brought up Jiddu Krishnamurti because it reminded me of there's this video on YouTube going around with him and Chogyam Trungpa having a debate about Dhyan practice or meditation.
Right.
Have you seen it?
Did you watch it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
did
Basically, they butt heads. It's quite fun to watch, actually.
Yes, and they have debated like that, and they butt heads, and they also have other occasions that they have taught together, and they were pretty much agreeing as well. But it's simply that one is following a tradition, and the other is trying to not follow anything at all. So when it gets into like the specifics of form, they will definitely disagree. I tend to prefer, and maybe that's just my personality, but I tend to prefer what goes to the core and not to the form.
I always find interesting perspectives when you see both experts having a debate, because it's pretty common in Buddhist culture, having a healthy debate about certain things.
Definitely, yes.
And I really enjoy it a lot because of that. So it's when you see those two giants like that talk about meditation, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, and there are so many teachings that are extremely subtle, like teachings about karma, teachings about reincarnation. Every teaching that has like a little bit of magic in it will be a great teaching for debating, because there is a whole spectrum of what people understood about it. Like reincarnation, some people take it literally, as if you will come back into the body of an animal or the body of a person or a plant or whatever. While others, like me, are more of the opinion that it's more about the ripples that you create in the universe, and it's about your ego incarnating different moments in time. And I mean, these things were said 2,500 years ago, so unfortunately we cannot kind of say, hey, Siddhartha, man, what did you mean? So we're kind of at this point where you have to pick the philosophy that works best for you, but that, yes, by hearing different and opposing ideas, you make it more subtle, like your understanding becomes a lot more subtle, and then you say, oh, I'm thinking that, but yeah, maybe he's right too, he could be right too, what do I know? So I think there is humility in this debating tradition and all the philosophical practices of Buddhism.
An acceptance of confusion.
Yes. Actually, the only other tradition that I know that does that is Judaism. Like, at a certain age, they get together and they debate the what's the book called? The Torah. So they debate the scriptures and their meaning, and it's like a rite of passage to, I think it's to qualify as a rabbi or something like that. And so, yeah, Buddhism is the same. You cannot become like a doctor in this philosophy if you don't go through these perpetual debates. And that's mostly Tibetan, but Theravada monks also do that. I know it's really nice to have you, Morgan. I like when we have new faces. I feel it always brings new perspective in the Sangha, and it enriches the group very much. And
Yeah, man, hope to see you
Casper,
again.
that... Sorry?
Oh, I was just saying, hope to see you again in the Monday sessions.
Yes. Yeah. Mondays are like the official sessions where I'm actually prepared. Today was not the case. And yeah, I mean, Casper, you seem to have become a regular now. I'm happy about that too.
Mm-hmm.
How is it working for you? Do you feel it's starting to help a little bit, the meditation?
Well, I guess I do have to say, especially with my anxiety, sometimes I come back from it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Nils, I'm gonna make a recommendation for you. Have you ever heard of Alan Watts?
No, I haven't.
Alan Watts was this incredible scholar of religions in general. Like he studied it in the university, and he's been a Catholic monk, and after that he became a Buddhist teacher. And he's just a monster of culture and of theosophy. And I feel he has wonderful English vocabulary and explanations to introduce somebody that has never heard about Buddhism, especially in the West. Actually, in the 60s, when probably nobody even could point Tibet on a map, or even Japan for that matter, he had a TV show where he was teaching Asian philosophy to people. And I believe that these TV shows are available on YouTube and or on Gaia. And if you get a chance, it's like a step-by-step initiation into... He goes from everything to... he goes from like... he teaches a bit about language, he teaches about calligraphy, he teaches a lot about Buddhism, but even about the clothing, and so it covers pretty much everything about those fascinating culture and the way that they move through life. So I would recommend that as a good initiation into the subject.
What's his name again? I'm gonna go and Google him.
Alan Watts.
Okay, thank you.
I don't
Went
know
through
if
an
any
Alan
of
Watts
you...
phase. So much there. Psychedelic philosopher.
So what do you think about Alan Watts, Scotto? Would it be a good introduction, you think, for somebody like Nils?
I think it's a really good introduction. Like, he scratches the surface of so many topics in a really easy to digest way for a Westerner who's not initiated in any of this stuff. And it's a great place to start for anything. He doesn't go too deep on a lot of subjects, which is probably my only complaint. Like, I've met people who have thought they're completely wise in the ways of particular subjects because they listen to a few Alan Watts talks, and I think that's really the only complaint I can make.
Right, but that's it. That's for beginners also. So,
Exactly.
also, there is a book, I think it's by Roshi Suzuki, called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. That was one of the first that really spoke to me. If you like the Zen culture and the simplicity of it, definitely.
Or any of
good,
Thich Nhat Hanh's books.
Yeah, Thich Nhat Hanh is fabulous, especially if emotions and compassion are your thing. He's a true compassion master. Very good for arising bodhicitta. And also to develop loving relationships with everything in the world. So, yeah. There are so many. That's why I've decided to start the Friday sessions Like whenever we don't have a guest teacher, we're gonna play a video from one of these masters. Like 1 week we could do Pema Chodron, the other we could do Alan Watts, another could be Krishnamurti, then Shohyam Trungpa, then Lama Lobsang that I said earlier, the Dalai Lama, and so on. So instead of being just poor old little me, we're actually gonna get the best of the
Sounds
best
fun.
to
A
visit
little
us.
chat after about it. That'd be good.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So
I guess I have one question that I've been struggling with this week, but I don't know if anybody else would be too interested. Maybe I should hold it for after. It's kind of a technical question about Vipassana meditation.
Oh, I mean, go ahead. I don't, unless you guys object.
No, go ahead. It's a
Sure. Okay.
pretty common topic in Buddhist meditation.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier in the introduction that I've been taking a course. It's from a Theravada monk in Ontario, and he basically just introduced his method of meditation, and suggested I do about half an hour of walking meditation per day and half an hour of sitting meditation per day. And week over week, he's been introducing new tasks for me to do, and they're really easy and intuitive to implement week over week. Like after the first week, he suggested being more mindful in my day-to-day life, which I loved, and I've been doing more and more every single day. The second week was just introducing an extra step into the walking meditation. So instead of walking left, walking right, it was lifting and then placing, lifting and then placing. And then he introduced mindful prostration, just a way to come to sort of respect the practice of meditation more, a way to, train
Lay
yourself.
Your ego down.
Exactly, yeah. It's just a way of doing essentially what is a Thai prostration in a mindful way. And I do that before each of my meditation sessions. To my little Buddha statue, a little altar that I made at home. And then the
That's
week
good.
after that was another step, lifting, moving, placing for walking meditation. And this week
Did he get you to wash his cars and paint his fences like Miyagi?
No, nothing like that yet, but I haven't went and visited the meditation center, so I might get back to you. Anyways, the
He'll make you paint
suggestion
his
or the-
house.
Yeah. Mindfully, that's exactly. So the task this week has really been throwing me for a loop. I don't see him again until next weekend, so I have a lot of personal meditation time between now and then, and I just can't wrap my head around on the task for this week. So what he suggested I do this week, instead of for his sitting meditation, he suggests following the rising and the falling of your chest to your stomach. Just kind of just a variant on following your breath, right? But anyways, he suggested the task this week was to introduce sitting into the order. So rising, falling, sitting. And I thought it was great when he told me that on the call. I'm like, all right, I'll go and try that. When I went to actually do the meditation on my own, I get thrown for a loop because I remember him explicitly saying that I shouldn't stop my breathing when I note sitting. I continue with the breathing. So I kind of get lost. I notice another thing that he always mentions is that before we do any of these actions, like rising or falling or lifting or moving or placing, is to have the thought before you do the action to make the connection and continue the thought throughout the action all the way to the end. So what I find is like I note the rising, I note the falling, I note the sitting, but after I've noted the sitting, I'm halfway into another rising of my breath, and it's kind of throwing me off like this one-track mind that I seem to be developing with Vipassana meditation. And I say one-track mind because, you know, you're focusing on usually one specific thing, which keeps the mind from wandering to other subjects, right? But I'm wondering
So
if maybe that's something
what
that I
strikes me
shouldn't be doing.
though, Ska, though, is that what you're practicing is not vipassana. That's shamatha. Uh, this one-pointedness, concentration, and going back to the breath, or going back to the thought, or going back to whatever it is that he asks you to focus on, is actually mindfulness practice through shamatha. And
Well, that is
and
vipassana, right? It is
no,
meditating or...
shamatha always precedes vipassana, because you have to calm yourself and kind of go back to the peace with shamatha, and then you will do vipassana is discursive meditation, so it's analysis that you do in your mind about the world. So about how you interact with the world, about how the world is affecting you, what is the true nature of reality, what is the true nature of your being, who you are. So, and the traditional way that vipassana is taught is look at the table in front of you. Why is it called a table? Is the table in the leg of the table? No. Is it in the wood? No. Was it in the tree? So Vipassana meditation, the goal of Vipassana meditation is to deconstruct the illusions that surround you and see that they are just, that everything that you have a concept or a name for is just a bunch of causes and conditions put together in a very impermanent fashion. So Vipassana is used to realize impermanence and emptiness, and you,
Yes.
through it, eventually your Buddha nature. But it could be that the training that you're going through right now is very gradual. So now I think he's teaching you all kinds of shamatha so that you develop good mindfulness skills, and then he's gonna keep on extending and extending, and at one point he will include the discursive meditation, and then it will become vipassana. Some don't bother differentiate the technique; they just call it vipassana because that's like where it culminates. So I think you might be walking that kind of path right now.
Sorry,
So
I want to write
just,
this down. What did you call it? Sorry.
I don't know.
Oh no, what did you say that I'm practicing right now? You
Right now,
had
shamatha.
a name for it. Shamatha. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes, that.
they call it shine in Tibetan Buddhism also. And it's written actually, we say shamatha, but it's written samatha, like Samatha. So you will recognize it when you look at it. It's one-pointedness, it's concentration, and it's peace. So it's, and we do the same actually in the Sangha. We do shamatha in the first 10 minutes so that we kind of disconnect from the world and that our mind becomes clear. So it's about like letting the mud settle in the glass of water. And then when the mind is clear, usually we bridge towards Tonglen, which is compassion meditation. So we use like this space that we have created in our mind to do visualizations of people that suffer or us, or so we let our bodhicitta arise and kind of work with our emotions. And then since we are still calm, and so since we can go back to this peace that we have created through the breath and through shamatha, then the third phase is vipassana. But I don't teach vipassana the traditional way because I feel it's very third century. So I try to. That's why, you know, one time we learned about the Higgs boson particles, and I like to play with science and astrophysics and quantum mechanics, and then go back a little bit traditional, and because I don't really care how they define reality 2,000 years ago. I want to kind of really go to the bottom of it using all the means that we have. So that's how I practice my vipassana, and how I try to teach it as well. So you
like
won't get that. You won't get that in Theravada because Theravada is a very traditional path. So they would be frowned upon if they did that kind of thing.
Yeah. Should have a conversation about the simulation theory at some point. Might be a lot of overlap. Some interesting discussion that could come out of that.
Ooh, the simulation theory.
Yeah.
Right.
It
So
kind of aligns with Buddhism to a certain degree.
So
But
let's
I
say
think
let's
it's
say we
a
are
long road to go
watching
down.
let's say we're watching the Matrix trilogy tonight, and as we watch the Matrix, we're thinking, oh, are we a simulation? Could it be that I'm really like in a pod like that, being fed reality? Could it, all the questions that go through your mind while you're watching the Matrix? That's Vipassana meditation, because you're
I do that all the
questioning
time.
reality.
Zenkei,
Yeah, that's Vipassana. So if you have an anxious, analytical mind, you're pretty much doing Vipassana all the time. But the problem is that maybe you derail the train, maybe you get off track. So that's what shamatha helps you, is like when the train, like when you go from analyzing reality and you jump into ice cream cones all of a sudden and you follow a trail and then start worrying about your heartbeats or something like that, and you're having a panic attack. That's because you're
If I'm being
lacking the
honest,
shamatha. And, yeah.
I'm not entirely sure he's ever called it Vipassana meditation. He's always just saying that's what you're trying to cultivate through the practice. That might just be me
Yeah.
mislabeling.
Because you're cultivating the view. I always say that like one of the most important aspects of Buddhism is that you develop like the eyes of enlightenment, so that you develop the proper view of the world. And the traditional way to get there is Vipassana. So it could be that that's how he kind of explains it.
Zenkei, I do have a question about something. Not about the simulation theory, but maybe you know where it originally came from, because I used to read about it and it was quite interesting, but I don't know what it was about, or if it was from a famous philosophist or something. But it was about that the universe itself could be one big consciousness, a living consciousness, and that everything in it is like the universe trying to understand itself from the inside out by being reborn.
Oh yeah.
As many things like stones, animals, humans, or just everything in itself.
Right, so that's one jazzy version of Buddhism. Pretty much these concepts have been around for thousands of years. So I don't know the guy, unfortunately, personally, who started with this theory. I could not name it. But Gnosticism and Buddhism, I feel, are both very close to these notions. But the idea that you are the universe looking at itself is completely Buddhist.
Yes,
It's the
that's what it
mind-only
was.
theory of the Mahayana path. So that's 100% Buddhist. Now, I'm not sure everybody that is a Buddhist believes that you can be reincarnated in a rock. But if you take it from a scientific or philosophical point of view, that nothing is ever created and nothing is ever lost in the universe, then you can kind of see how your stuff, how your mind stuff, how your body stuff, how your emotional stuff can be recycled into all kinds of other things by the universe.
Didn't they say that, what was it again, ever since the Big Bang, that energy, the same energy is still, I'm not really good with those things, but that energy doesn't die, that it's still the same as 4.5 billion years ago?
Well, I like asking to people, when you were born, how many atoms were added to the universe? And I'm asking it to you guys now. What would your answer be?
None equals MC squared.
And so when you die, how many atoms will be removed from the universe?
Has to be none.
That's kind of an adequate answer, and this goes at the heart of the emptiness teaching of the universe. See, you're nothing. You didn't even bring one atom with you when you came into this world, and you're not even leaving with one when you die. So what are you?
I'm almost insulted. I want to keep my atoms. Yeah, but it's interesting to think about that it might be that life might be actually more than just living once and eternal.
Actually, actually, this is the secret to eternal life. Once you realize that, then you can pretty much say that you were never born and that you never die. You were kind of always there. You were just reshaped, weren't you? So for me, this is the deeper meaning of reincarnation. And then there is another teaching that relates to reincarnation and karma, because they say, like an enlightened being like the Buddha, you will not reincarnate. And that's kind of strange. But what is meant is actually that as long as you operate from your ego, you will create dissonance, and you will create actions where you are not in harmony with the whole of the universe. And when you do that, you create division and you create ripples, and you could be dead 10 years and those ripples would still be going around and affecting people and kind of keeping you alive. So whenever your ego is manifesting, that's like an incarnation. You are kind of there dominating and shocking the world and creating consequences. But let's say you learn to live completely harmoniously and gently with everything that there is. Then the ripples that you create would be less and less and less. So that's why an enlightened being that retires in a cave and has reached full enlightenment would not reincarnate, because he is, apart from the ecosystem of his cave, he's not really creating a lot of ripples in the world, and is not incarnating his ego in a way that he's dominating anything. He's just living harmoniously with the environment of his cave, like an animal. And so the ideal of many monks, many high monks that you will meet, is to die without leaving a trace, like an animal in a forest, because that's harmony, and that's the end of the samsaric cycle. So it kind of starts with the realization that you were never born, that you will never die, and that even in between, as you have this human consciousness, you should live with the highest harmony as possible. You should dance with the world as skillfully as you can, so that you are not reshaping the universe's will, if you will. We're just a cog. We're not meant to be the architect. So that's kind of the idea behind that, I'd say.
I think that's why a lot of people like that one guy that everyone looks towards to, like that one painter that separated himself, Bob Ross, that a lot of people watch. I think he also went more into nature and secluded himself at the end.
Which one is that?
Bob Ross, wasn't that the painter? The one with the fuzzy hair? That with the,
Bob Ross.
Yeah, with the happy accidents and beating the devil out of it.
Yeah, he's like a bodhisattva.
I could see that.
Have you ever heard about him, Zenkei?
I'm shocked, because I've been painting and I know a lot of painters, but this one doesn't ring a bell at all.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the
I'm
TV
sure when you saw him,
tutorial
you'd notice.
painting guy from like the 70s. He's a white guy
big
with a big
afro.
afro.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, Bob Ross, I don't.
I think he's a
you guys know
bodhisattva.
that. Yes, and how did he become a bodhisattva? Is that he was a war vet. This guy he was actually he had a rank in the army, and he went through some crazy stuff. And when he went back, he decided to dedicate his life to peace. And so you probably saw through his shows that he was raising little animals and caring for them and teaching people for free. And he was very zen also when he painted, and a bit funny. So yeah, I know the guy, and I do think that. Well, I don't know if the guy was a bodhisattva or a Buddha, but definitely there was some wakefulness in this guy. He was not looking at the world with the same eyes as everybody, and he was trying to live in harmony with it. And yeah, that's a good observation, Casper. And it relates to what we were doing in the walk earlier, looking like a painter. right?
Yeah, I kept thinking of Bob Ross painting happy trees, and it's
Yes,
always,
happy little trees.
he always makes it seem so easy, and then he moves his brush, and suddenly this blob of paint turns into a fascinating mountain, and I'm like, that looks easy, let me try it. And I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm getting
Okay, I do have one quick question about the train of thought before we move on from that completely, though. I'm not trying to conflict with anything that you said here because I agree with everything that you said intellectually. But then I think about Siddhartha Gautama himself, right? I don't think anybody would disagree that he was definitely enlightened and that he created a lot of ripples, like good ripples.
Yep.
So if,
So,
I mean,
so how do I reconcile that?
yeah, that's kind of where I'm going.
Yeah. So the way that and let's forget like the historic Buddha because these things have been reinterpreted. And what you're
Or
referring
any
to right now.
bodhisattva, right?
No, so that's the thing. The key word you have just said is bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is somebody that renounces enlightenment for himself so that he can help others. So that means that a bodhisattva chooses to reincarnate, actually, chooses to be part of the samsaric cycle again and again. And the way that it happens is that you go in the world and you create ripples, and so you can never really rest. And if you look at the masters that died 400 years ago, like in Tibetan lineage, they're still citing them, and there's still many books about them, and so they're still pretty much there. So they've been, I guess, reincarnated as books, but they're also now they're everywhere. They're in the minds of a lot of people at the same time. So see how it relates to the cities and the special powers of the Buddha?
Yeah.
So, but the key word is bodhisattva. What I was trying to explain is that in Hinayana, there was no like mind-only theory in Hinayana. It was just the Buddha saying, look, here's a method to transcend fear, desire, and anger. That's the first turning of the wheel, and that's what he taught there. And what he was giving birth to were harats. So people that woke up and retired to caves as hermits and kind of enjoyed their newfound bliss for themselves and or their families or whatever. But then a new generation of Buddhists came up and said, hey, you develop all that wisdom and you keep it all for yourself and you're not helping anybody with it and you're not teaching it. That's not right. You are an inferior Buddha. You should become a superior Buddha and walk the Bodhisattva path where you decide to renounce your cave and stay in the world and stay off the world and keep on creating ripples because we need you, man. Right? So that's Mahayana. The entire school of thought of Mahayana is kind of based on that principle, and it doesn't allow you to achieve paranirvana. So because true nirvana, I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but if you go deep in the sutras, you cannot achieve nirvana on earth. You can only get glimpses of it. You can only get a preview, like when you find your peace. But then again, you cannot remove your body, so your body's still there and your heart is still beating and you're still breathing and everything. So you're not completely blended with the emptiness stuff. You're still existing in some way. There are some processes that you cannot stop and that you cannot control. So you are not completely the stuff of the universe in a way. You're still an individual in a way. So that's why they say that you can only achieve nirvana when you're dead and taken apart, and when you're going back to the universe and going back to the river and the earth and others. So that's also the kind of how these things link. Like you get previews of nirvana through your Buddhism teaching, and you can get that pretty much stable, especially if you retire. Or you can walk like the Bodhisattva path and kind of say, okay, I'm never really going to be in that state that I'm alone in a cave and everything is fun all the time. I will keep on learning basically until the day I die. but hopefully the going's going to get easier. So there's a lot of contrast between these two philosophies. And I started my path as a Pratyeka Buddha. I don't know if you've heard about this one.
No.
So Pratyeka Buddha is pretty much like the path of the person that decides to find the light inside of them. So that it's like through your introspection, through your own understanding of the universe, through your own research. Basically, you're going through the same process as Buddha did, as he was on his quest, trying all kinds of things with the ascetics, trying to meditate by himself. Like, Buddha was not a Buddhist, right? So,
Yeah.
so the Pratyeka Buddha is kind of just trying to walk a path similar to the Buddha, but to find his own answers exclusively. And if you speak to the old masters of Tibet or of Japan, they will tell you that somebody that is well versed in meditation is a better practitioner. Is a better practitioner than somebody that is well versed in the academics of Buddhism, because what's right, like the academics can help you find your inner wisdom, but what if you connect with it right away? So you can, like in Tibetan Buddhism, you have the Guru Yoga, so everything is like through the Guru, and you make it perfect in your mind, and then you aspire to transform yourself into the Guru. And that's how you try to become like the Buddha, and he gives you practices and all of this. In Zen, it's pretty much forced introspection, like your practice is sitting and nothing else. And when you lose your awareness, they beat you. So it's just sitting. And then you have the Sravakas. So the Sravakas is the path of those who listen. And these I would call the spiritual shoppers. So those that follow many masters and take a little bit from here and there and buy a few crystals and get a pyramid and, you know, everything that could help. Little lucky charms here and there just to make sure that I'm not missing on anything. Which is fine too, you know, because it's not the same things that speak to us at the same period of our lives. So, but it's definitely, well, I like the expression, they are spiritual seekers, but not necessarily spiritual finders. So
Kind of relatable right now.
So the Sravakas, yeah, they are kind of on this path of listening until something clicks, and then they will either they remain Sravakas forever, or something will click and they will decide to follow. They will have found their master, or they will have found like a part of the path that they like a lot. So I kind of went from Pratyeka Buddha to Sravaka, and in the end I decided that it was like the Shambhala path for me that was the most compatible with what I had found in myself. But that could be anything for you. But I think what's important is just that we realize that there are so many paths to this truth. It's not a Buddhist truth, it's a human truth. And it's accessible to all of us. It's just a matter of looking in the right way.
I like that.
So, and it relates, Casper, to what we were saying earlier, like, shamatha keeps you on track. The problem with the unpacified mind is that it goes all over the place and it obsesses about things that we don't really want to obsess about. And so you really need that mindfulness muscle to say, hey, come back here. Like, I want to find my answers now, and I want to snap out of these habits. So really, like, Vipassana will keep you on the analysis of the universe, but your concentration will bring you back to it. And as you find the answers, you kind of automatically pacify generally in your life.
I do have to say, I mean, I've been keeping my anxiety better under control just in general. But you said something that you used to have anxiety yourself back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Do you still have that to this day, or do you think you completely controlled it, or is it something that you have to live with in a way?
No, it's over. I won't tell you that I never get anxious about anything, but not to the point that it's crippling. Like if I have a very bad news, or if I don't know, if somebody I love falls off a ladder and they hit themselves and they're in the hospital, you know, I may worry a bit about them, but I won't be losing sleep over that because I found my place. I know that I cannot control this and I can only be there for them and accommodate them, but I'm not gonna obsess over the thing. So the obsessive compulsive part of my anxiety is completely gone, completely. But I can have the emotion of feeling anxious and then it goes away very fast because of this mindfulness muscle that says, hey, what are you doing to yourself right now? Why are you obsessing over this? There's nothing you can do. Relax. Do what you think you can do and then relax, you know? So that's kind of how I deal with it, and almost never have insomnia, never have a... Actually, I heard you speak about this condition a few times as if it was something that you could not get rid of, and my happy wish for you for 2021 is that you discover that there is a very bright light at the end of this tunnel. I know for a fact that anxiety can be completely cured, but it's not a one-day thing, though.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if it's an external thing either. Like, I'm not sure if a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a doctor or a pill can really do anything about it. There are some habits in you that you need to break, and
I do think
then it's
so,
gonna
because
improve.
I've been to many doctors, to many when you live in Europe with our healthcare system, it's kind of easy to go to 4 different doctors for 4 different examinations. I did an entire cardiology test in the best heart hospital in Belgium, did the whole shebang, and they found nothing. And my doctor says there is nothing to be found, that I already did more tests than people double my age did. So it's really mental, it seems, in my case. Ever since I lost my father that it started, so it's probably born from a traumatic event.
Yeah, but it's in a way it's always mental, because let's imagine that I have a real complicated heart condition. Let's say I have tachycardia and my heart races sometimes. Well, there are 2 ways to go about it. I can get very worried and afraid of dying whenever I have tachycardia and kind of panic a bit about it, and then that would probably make my tachycardia worse. Or I could kind of be at peace with the fact that I can die at any time, and I don't need tachycardia to die at any time. I could be hit by a like by a truck tomorrow and be removed from this world. So death is a constant companion. And by the way, meditation on death and vipassana on death is a very, very powerful technique that tends to remove a lot of anxiety. Because if you accept death, then what do you have to worry about? Okay. So what I'm saying is, somebody is suffering from real things that hospitals can really detect. If they have the right mindset, they won't suffer from it. They will have the pain, but they won't have the mental suffering that goes with it, which is what is crippling you when you're having an anxiety attack, not the heart.
I don't think it's the fear of death itself, rather that by acting out that it's rather that there are still things that one still wants to do in his or her lifetime to get to certain places. Like, I want to be able to help certain people in my life, and the thought that something might happen before I could help these people. That's kind of what keeps me. You could say that, like, the fear that I would have not finished tasks or something.
Right. So, and have you tried to accept that no matter what you will think about it, it is a definite possibility that you could not. Let me tell you a little something personal. When I started in business, I had nothing. I come from the gutter, basically, and I had to make my way among professionals and among people who had a lot of money. And I didn't even speak or understand their language when I started. So I needed help. I thought to get there. Oh. No, I think that's not a good point to make. I will just confuse you. Let's forget it. Sorry, Casper. Oh wow, I killed this conversation, didn't I?
It's a tough subject to broach, you know. Like, I've heard a lot of different opinions on it. I don't know if I've settled on one myself, but it feels like the more I meditate, the less I start. What's the word I want to use? Connecting with my ego. And the more I start realizing a lot of these wishes that I've always had, and I've fulfilled, and they still don't make me happy. And honestly, that I should work on being happy without the completion of these goals as a baseline, because it's very possible that I never will achieve them, right? That doesn't mean that I don't try anymore. It just means that my happiness isn't dependent on the completion of those goals, or at least that's what I'm trying to work towards.
I think in my case it's that I took it personal because the relationship with my father was really difficult when he was still alive, and it was quite traumatic that he always let his children feel that we basically a lot of the stuff we did was worthless, or that we, he was really good at putting you down, from child on out. And I think by trying to help people in general, that I kind of want to prove my father wrong, or at least maybe not my father but myself, that the state that I began to believe my father in the beginning, that is what he was thinking about me. Maybe I'm just trying to prove it to myself. So yeah.
First of all, man, that sucks. I'm sorry you had to deal with that.
Nah, well, he was a difficult man. He was suffering as well.
Well, that's the thing, people that hurt us often, it's because they suffer that they do, and they just don't find the words or the right ways to express themselves. Me, I've been wanting just to maybe go to the essence without make it very complicated. When I was learning business, there are people that helped me and that I was dreaming of paying back. And at some point I had to accept that I could not do for them what they had done for me. And I've just decided to express my gratitude into other things. I tried to pay it forward. I tried to help the youth. I tried to do other things that, in a way, even though I was not able to be good to them the way that they were good to me, I did something worthy with my time and with my life. And, maybe remove the specifics. Like, what if you just lived a good, beneficial life for anything or anyone around you? Maybe at some point you will get to those that you really want to help. Maybe not, but in the meantime, you will have nothing to regret if you die in the process. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like Adyashanti, which is another teacher that I like, says, if you pick a fight with life, you will always lose. So if you make a decision and you're like, this must happen, then you're pretty much at war with life, because it's possible that life won't agree with that decision. And there is also Louise L. Hay, which is a pop psycho author, I guess. She wrote a book that maybe you should read, Casper, if you haven't already. It's called You Can Heal Your Life. And right in the beginning of the book, she goes into a little practice that I love. She says, make a list of everything that you think you should. Like, I should make my bed every day. I should love my parents. I should help such and such person. I should. And then you will discover what your own personal mythology is made of. You will discover all of the beliefs that you hold, and then you can question why you hold those beliefs and how true they are. Because if you and I made a list, we would have something in common and some things completely different. And it's based on our families, our environment, our experience of life, and some commonalities in the way that the world works. So, for example, it's pretty common in the world that you should study, you should work, you should marry, and then you should retire. But that's a bunch of bullshit, isn't it? I mean, why would you live your life in that sequence? You can do it. You can decide not to study, you can decide not to work, you can decide not to have a wife, or you can do it all in reverse, or have a dog instead of doing all of that. It's just like social conventions, and they become our shoulds. They become like the law. And when we don't achieve those things, then we start stressing about it and beating ourselves over it. So what Louise L. A. say is, get rid of your shoulds. They're just lies that you tell yourself. They're not things that are really needed. They're just things that you believe are needed. So when I did that in my own life, I felt a ton of pressure removed from my shoulders. I don't know if you ever tried something like that, any of you? Or if you ever thought about that?
I have, actually. I've been thinking about that a lot. And too early for me to actually pull the trigger on anything, but I found myself here at 26. I make really good money. I work from home. I've been doing it now for 4 or 5 years, and I dread waking up and doing it every single day. Like, from the outside, everybody thinks that everything is great for me. I work for a big tech company as a programmer. I get to live at home. They fly me around the country. But I dread doing it every single day. I dread having to, because web development changes basically on a weekly basis. It's a train that I can never hop off. I have to do
That's
this
how
for the
you know
rest
you're a
of my life.
programmer.
Yeah.
You
But let's
dread
Oh, man.
waking up
by
doing
Jim
it
Carrey.
every day.
Yeah, I wake up every day.
I don't know if you guys came across that quotation Jim Carrey wrote. I hope everybody could get rich and famous and have everything they ever dreamed of, so they will know that it's not the answer.
It's not. It's not. This is everything I thought I wanted in life. The freedom, like, I live alone in a nice house. I've had great relationships. I'm single now, but they didn't make me happy. Neither did getting this job or this house or this. I think what I was shooting for was security.
So here's my question to you, Scotto. What can make you happy?
Well, I mean, meditation's gotten me closer than absolutely anything. These last few months have meant more to me than the last 10 years have. So I think it's just coming back to a baseline level of happiness, detaching from my ego, letting go of a lot of the expectations and desires that I've lived with all these years because they haven't serviced me. And I can see that clearly now for the first time. And
That's great progress.
yeah, it's kind of really life-changing. I haven't, like I said,
But
I haven't decided if I'm gonna pull the trigger on any of this stuff.
I'm
But I realize now that I could be just as happy making slightly above minimum wage. I might probably be significantly more happy. Just enough to live. Like that's all I need. That's all I really want.
That's so funny to me. Today I was talking with Carl Casper and I was telling him a little piece of my life that not a lot of people know, but basically I at some point at the lowest point in my life, I was sleeping under a bridge in winter, looking for wood in the city to make a fire so I didn't die, and knocking on doors of restaurants after they closed so that I could get the spoils of the day to feed myself and some of my companions. So I had an experience that was not very long where I had to live on the street actually, and I don't know how lower you can go. For me that was pretty much rock bottom. And then I went from that to having an international business career. I've been hired by the Vice Prime Minister of the province of Quebec. I've been sent as an international business liaison around the world. And I've had lunch with presidents of countries. And I've had a beer with billionaires in very informal settings. So the extremes that I went through in my life are incredible. But you know what? Even when I was under the bridge, I was not unhappy. And I couldn't say that when I was having lunch with a president that I was happier either. What cannot make us happy, I would say, is anything external. If you're looking for a partner to make you happy, do you realize how stupid that sounds? How am I gonna delegate my happiness to somebody else? I say, okay, you're in my life now, your job is to make me happy. That doesn't make any sense. And then you tell to your boss, okay boss, now that I got that job, that job's job is to make me happy. That doesn't make any sense either. That job's job is to pay you and pay for your groceries and function in society. But we are looking for external sources of satisfaction. So it's pretty clear to me that the only thing that can make me happy is me. Right? And that's why meditation works. Because it's just me and me having a good time. Now, when you have a good time with me and me, let's say you manage to be happy with your big programmer's salary and you wake up in the morning and you're very motivated and you're having a blast, then maybe you could go on the other end of the spectrum, which I have seen a lot in some circles in my life. People with lots of money and private jets, and then what they do is they party all the time, or they just buy whatever they can just because they can, and then they end up having very empty lives, very unsatisfying life, very meaningless life. So they're happy in the sense of like joyful and like in a party mindset, but when the party's over. They're usually pretty sad. So then you see that you could own the entire world, and if you don't have this basic wisdom that the responsibility of being happy is yours, you will be miserable everywhere. The real way of practice, real Buddhism, let's talk about real things, and I'm repeating that often because it's really the most important teaching that I can transmit, I think. Buddhism is, I usually call it love, but let's say now I'm going to call it happiness. So Buddhism is about recognizing what happiness is and developing the mindfulness of going back to it whenever it's absent from our life. So the peace that you find in meditation, the contentment, the feeling that nothing is lacking, That's your happiness right there. And it doesn't feel like party happiness. It's a quiet happiness. It's a quiet love. It's a quiet peace. So the idea, really, the entire path is about getting to know this intimately and as the source of all happiness, and then having the mental muscles to go back to that as often as possible when you don't feel like working, when your relationship and your partner is pissing you off, when you're challenged by your health. You just go back to the source of all happiness, and then you become unshakable. And here we're in Shoshin, which is beginner's mind, and that state is called Fudoshin, unshakable heart.
I do know that
like it.
less than a month ago, I sometimes still had trouble going not too far away from the store because my anxiety would always be up. But I have to do stuff outside. And ever since a couple of weeks, when I go outside, sometimes I notice that I'm just walking and there is no immediate fear. And sometimes I just get struck by it and I just stand still and I'm like, this is a new experience for me. Like, I forgot how this felt like. And it's quite emotional once you realize how it feels to live without fear.
Yes.
Especially if you've been through it.
It's a beautiful moment.
Yes, it is. It is. Suddenly everything looks far more better than. Yeah. It's a moment
Try
that I
this
can't
walking
describe.
practice that we did today. The next time you're outside, look at the tree, the leaves, the wind. Get really absorbed into your environment. Don't be overwhelmed like by all the people moving and the sounds in the car, but kind of pick points of interest in your environment and focus on them. And it should really help pacify your mind. And what's going to happen there is that you will see that the colors, somehow, they will become a little bit more vivid. And everything around you will become a little bit more alive. But like genuinely alive, not just moving and wiggling. And so, if this process has started in you, I think there's a good chance that you could improve pretty fast at this and maybe vanquish this fear.
Yeah.
And
Actually.
as long as you don't try, as long as you don't try to fight the fear, like don't focus on the fear, keep on focusing on the other aspect, focus on the peace, and the fear will kind of go away. The more peace experience you get, the less fear will have room in your life, and it just simply will go away.
So what do you do if you reach?
Oh, go ahead, man.
What do you do if you reach that point where like you're kind of happy with life or whatever, but it feels like there needs to be a little bit more?
Like a little bit
just
more
feels
meaning.
Like, yeah.
So,
So you get enough happiness in your day-to-day life, or you just feel like there's something missing always?
Yeah, it feels like there's something missing. I'm not really sure how else to describe it.
So just to repeat what I was saying about Buddhism, that it's like happiness and being aware of it and then going back to it. In a way, to remain happy, it's a decision also. It's not just like bringing back the mind. It's deciding now and every moment I decide to be happy. So now I decide to be content with whatever is going on in my life. And I mean, if we were completely stable in our practice, that would be easy to do. Huh? We would just make that decision all the time. But the thing is that we don't have that kind of awareness and that kind of mindfulness now. So we need maybe something meanwhile. And in very stupidly, I would say, try to find out what it is that you like doing, that benefits others, that is recognized also by others as as something worthy and something that the world needs. And if you have these four components, it can become your new hobby, your new occupation, and it will probably bring a great sense of meaning in your life, as opposed to like unwholesome occupations like shooting a gun on the weekend or playing poker or whatever it is that we guys enjoy to do at the at the end of the week. If you pick something that really makes a difference, not only in your life but in the life of others and in the world, chances are that you will be able to ride that wave for a long while. So it's two components. When you're strong enough mentally, when you're in a period where your practice is going well, just try to make the decision to be content, because that's the only time when you're really rich. When you make the decision that you have everything and that you lack nothing, you are the richest man on earth. But if you cannot get there mentally or emotionally, then I don't know, you get out and go serve some soup to people, and maybe you won't feel like doing it too much on the way, but on the way back you will feel like $1 million again, because you will have done something great for yourself and for others. So these are the two ways I would approach it, I think.
I like that. I'll ask one last loaded question, Zenkei, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Jeez, it's getting late, isn't it? So,
Okay.
a lot of these are probably really basic questions. I live by myself, and I don't really have anybody in my life that I can bounce this stuff off of, because everybody look at me like I'm crazy. But for the most part, in my life,
It's a good
small town
thing you
folk.
don't see my eyes right now.
Okay, so hopefully this isn't too crazy, but the longer that I meditate, like I said, it's really only been 3 or 4 months that I've taken it seriously. But the longer I meditate, the more I kind of stop associating my thoughts as myself, if that makes sense. Like, as I'm meditating, I see that these thoughts come up. I didn't decide that these thoughts should come up. They just arose from somewhere. Whether it's a craving or whether it's a reflection, or whether it's a worry, they happen whether I choose for them to happen or not, right? It's just for the first time I'm noticing that it's not me that is choosing these thoughts, or at least me as the observer. I'm not consciously bringing up these thoughts, they just happen. So are they me? Like, what's the separation there? If I'm not my brain, like, I always had kind of a similar view to the simulation theory. We're obviously not our right arm, we're obviously not our left arm, we're not our legs. We're our consciousness, which exists somewhere within the brain. Like, the dual process theory would say that it exists in the midline cortical structures of your brain. I still can't fully understand. Anyways, have you had similar thoughts to these? Where did they end up after 20 years of festering?
Well, you could say that the consciousness of the computer lies in its circuitry between the silicate, soldering and all of that. But is the consciousness of the computer really in its circuitry? Is your consciousness really? Okay, I'll tell you about a personal experience. And pay close attention, because it's... let me do 2 things. I'm going to give you a traditional introduction to the nature of the mind, like Tibetans do it.
Okay.
So there is this little monk, and he goes with his old master, and they go to lay on a hill, and it's night. And they're very quiet, and all of a sudden the master asks the pupil. He says, "Pupil, do you see the stars?" And the pupil says, "Yes." And then he says, do you hear the dog bark in the distance? And the pupil says, yes. And he says, can you hear my voice? And the pupil says, yes. And then the master concludes by saying, well, this is the nature of mind. And then he stops talking for the rest of the night. He lets the student ponder that. What would you make of an introduction like this?
Nature of the mind is just a compilation of external stimuli. At least that's what it seems to be at surface value.
Why do you use the word compilation?
Oh, because it seems to store different events, and then we're able to somehow regurgitate them and mash them together into particular
isn't that
worldviews.
memory, though? Is memory and
That
consciousness
is-
the same for you?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So let's say
They do
memory is
say-
compiling and consciousness is not doing that. So
They do say that conscious... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I want to let you speak too. Just if you have more questions, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, it was just one comment. And smart people, I can't remember who actually quoted or said this themselves, but they say consciousness is the brain becoming aware of itself, right? Or at least some people say that.
Right, but
So
the thing is, the problem with consciousness, and when you relate it with the brain, is that this thing, believe it or not, it has not been proven that consciousness is related to the brain at all. I think Schrödinger, which is one of the top quantum theorists, has pondered that, and he has some famous quotes actually saying that, look, consciousness, as far as he was concerned, was the smallest thing in the universe that you could not reduce to anything smaller. Like, you cannot take it apart into atoms. It's just consciousness, and nobody is able to find an explanation for this. So let's say that in a way, in the example I was, the traditional introduction I was giving earlier, let's say that what we witnessed was a movement of the mind. Like the mind went to the dog, and then the mind went to the voice, and then the mind went to the stars. And it did something as it went. And what it did is that it became conscious of these things. That's pretty much what the definition of the Buddhist word awareness. So for me, the way that I lived it is, one time I was in Ecuador and I had been working on our land outside. And I had been meditating a lot. Actually, I had built a yin-yang motif on our land with white rocks and black rocks, like one by one, and that had been my meditation for the entire, like for 3 days I think it took me, and I never finished it. But I was doing that. And then I took a break from that work, and I just kind of went and sat in contemplation. And then there was a loud noise, like to the west. And I looked towards the noise, and there was a stray dog on my land. And he also looked to the west the same time as me. And then I understood something important. Me and the dog shared one thing. Guess what it was?
Experience of a sound or something that drew your attention?
Consciousness. Or awareness. And then if you think of a sunflower, not very intelligent by any scientific definition, yet is a sunflower aware of its environment? It must be, huh? It turns towards the sun. Is a tree that grows its roots in a specific direction aware of the water? Or of the dryness? Probably. And now I have no clue what it is that rocks do, but maybe it's in there as well. Um, the thing is, and you know what is governing the movement of the planets and of the stars? What's making all of that work like clockwork? How is it that planets are conscious of one another in the form of gravity and kind of harmonize their movements with one another? How is it that our entire planet is conscious of the sun and the rain and the gases, and like everything seems to adapt? Like a phenomenon goes away and it's replaced by something else, and that, can't we think that there is some consciousness in there?
It would be a bit.
So
It would be a bit terrifying to think that the planet might be unconscious in itself, because we've been hurting the planet quite a bit since we've been here.
Oh yeah, I mean, when people say, "Oh, we're gonna kill the planet," forget that. I mean, when the planet's tired of us, it will be solved in a day or two. Humanity will just go under, and end of story. The Earth is pretty capable of solving its problems, and if we are the problem, we just won't be there anymore. So, but I do think, and many astrophysicists and many quantum theorists and many scientists actually kind of believe that the universe is conscious and self-aware. And so if that's the case, where is consciousness? Is it in your brain? Like if the blade of grass is conscious, how could you explain that it's in your brain? How could you explain the social behavior of the ants or of the bees?
Well, that kind of leads back to that we might be the universe, and from inward.
Experiencing itself,
Yeah.
yep. I've heard that quote too.
Yeah, I don't know from who it
Exactly.
was.
So
I don't remember that quote from who it exactly was.
Carl Sagan had a famous quote of that in the 60s. He also smoked a lot of marijuana, but one of the top scientists for a while.
Not to
So, yeah,
discredit
so-
it.
Oh no, I'm not discrediting it at all. I mean, it opens the gates of consciousness. And it's
Our man Alan Watts might have dabbled a little bit too.
oh, and so did Ram Dass and many others.
course. Myself.
Actually, there are Tibetan traditions where some of these substances are consumed, also like ritualistically, and shamanism is also full of that. So like it's nothing new at all. Everything is in the dosage and the and the balance, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's all you do in life, maybe you are not expending so much anymore.
I'd be lying if I said psychedelics kind of turned me towards this path, but I can see that it's not really going to take me all the way there, if that makes sense. But kind of
Well, the
absolutely
thing-
shattered my ego. 100%.
It's good to get a glimpse if you have no like if your consciousness is not awake right now and you try a psychedelic, you might get a glimpse. The problem with psychedelics is that they're by all means unstable. So one day you could get a glimpse into infinity, and the next day you could be hiding under your bed curled in a ball and scared of what's going on in the kitchen or whatever.
Yeah.
So I mean, and it can rewire your brain in very weird ways where you get, if you are a heavy user, you could really start confusing your hallucinations with reality, and then that becomes a problem. So I am not against it, but I am not for it. I think if you can walk the path without it, it's even better.
Just before people that use drugs suddenly begin to use it next an excuse. I'm just opening my mind. I'm just opening my conscious.
Right? No. I mean, there are people in Buddhist circles that insist that you do psychedelics. There are some that collect mushrooms everywhere, and that's a bit over
I mean,
the top.
the Indians, the Native Americans back in the day also used. Was it like marijuana that they used?
Oh, many things. Actually, it varied considerably according to the culture. But like in Latin America, they would use peyote. In Peru, they use ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, yeah.
Toga. Yeah, there's one that we call in French pavot. I don't know what it is it's like a little cousin of opium. So that was used a lot in Canada. And yes, cannabis. And also, there are little mushrooms that grow naturally in the forest. There are small red mushrooms that grow on birch, that are birch tree, that are very, very lethal. But when those dried, also apparently were used by shamans. So it's a whole science, right? But it's also a bit. It's like looking for happiness outside of you again. You're just trying to put something in you to find meaning.
Yeah, even if you do find some insight or some form of enlightenment, it's completely temporary. It's gone.
That's what I was about to say. It's short-lived.
Exactly. Yeah.
I find that's usually the case with ayahuasca.
Oh, did you try it?
No, I've never will. But I've known a lot of people that are huge on it. They all speak the same lingo, you know. You never know
Are
what
you
it's like
from
until you've met
California?
Aya. No.
I
I've
believe
been
that.
there. I lived there before. But yeah, like, and the problem with these people, they believe that they've achieved or attained something after they've went to see the shaman and do the whole ritual, right? But the problem is it wears out after about a year. So every year they go back and get that fix again, that temporary injection of an altered reality, I
Consciousness.
suppose.
It is.
Yeah.
It is world shattering. I'll say that. I have a bit of experience with DMT. I don't know if I'd ever recommend it to
What
anyone,
what is DMT?
but it's kind of beneficial to me. It's the drug that's found in ayahuasca, but ayahuasca turns it into an extended release experience. So instead of when you take just pure DMT, it's over in 15 minutes. It doesn't feel like 15 minutes. It feels like an eternity. But when you take ayahuasca, it lasts for like 4 to 8 hours. And you can apparently navigate the experience a lot clearly.
Yeah, and you're guided. There's somebody reading to you and talking to you and playing
Yeah.
music the whole time, so they kind of control your experience. But you hear all the nice stories, but I also heard about people removing all their clothes and fucking trees. So
I could see that happening.
Please?
So it's not
You're
always
not
something
in
that,
reality anymore.
like, if you know that there's going to be like a huge tribe of 30 people observing you as you do your ayahuasca, you might have a second thought about that.
Yeah.
If I was given the choice to either do ayahuasca or just DMT on its own, I'd rather do DMT on its own.
If you don't mind me asking why? Because it's short?
I would think it's a more pure experience because no one can really know if the shaman that's administering, that's doing all that work for you, like whether that person is honest about what they're doing, whether their lineage is even proper. Because you hear a lot about how it's a
Well, the shamans
cartel.
don't have a lineage, right? The shamans are supposed to go out and find their own way. Like that, I think
Yes,
that's kind of how the path
I-
works for them every single time. So you get
But what
so
I
many,
mean is,
a broad range of views. Some of them are crazy. Some of them might make sense. I don't know. I haven't gone down those rabbit holes.
there are definitely real shamans that have been taught by their families or their tribes. The practice is sacred to them. And then they're just modern day people, but from South America who can see that, okay, there's a lot of tourists coming in. There's a lot of money involved with this.
Yeah, that
I'm going to
happens.
be a shaman. And
There's also
I've
the
heard
fact
stories that
Oh, keep going.
I've even heard firsthand stories how, like, some of these guys that pose as shamans, they actually really hate people that
I've heard
that
that
come in
too.
and do
Yeah,
the ayahuasca, you know. So they won't
definitely
necessarily
people
give you a
abusing it.
good time. Yeah, and they'll do things that'll make you come back for more. So
Mm,
it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like someone trying to achieve meditational mind states through smoking marijuana. Like you're
yeah.
basically like, it's a crutch experience.
One of the real problems that I see with shamanism is that, and I've experienced this myself, and I've seen it in other people constantly, and that's people have revelations on psychedelics that they think are the absolute truth, but they're so far off based. They're just,
Mm-hmm.
like a refraction of some weird thought that they've had, but because they experienced and felt that thought differently on psychedelics, they think it's now somewhat profound. And I don't want to completely disparage the idea that some important insight can come from psychedelics, because I think it's made pretty large impact on my life for the better. But I don't come out of it assuming some of the things that I've seen are truth. It's just an altered version of reality. Um, yeah, so that's kind of why shamanism scares me. But I will say that DMT is in a whole different league of its own. I can hardly even put it in the same category as any other psychedelic. I did it
So,
once, and I'll
so what happened to you?
probably never do it again. Well, like I said, I've had quite a bit of experience with psychedelics. I've probably dropped shrooms a dozen times, LSD maybe 20 times, up to doses of like 1,000 micrograms, which is definitely a heroic dose over the years. Um, and every time I did it, I would have revelations. I'd get the out of body experience. I'd get um, complete ego
Were you
dissolution.
talking about LSD?
Yeah, talking about LSD right now. But I
I did.
never like I'd see. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was about to. I didn't do much of any of that, but I did try that, and it's pretty spectacular. Not sure I learned anything, but
Yeah.
I did learn that potatoes could fly. I didn't know that before.
Wait, what? Okay.
I found some pretty significant meaning in it because a few times that I took it, I made pretty large life decisions that when I reflected on them sober, I knew that they were true. Not because I saw them during my psychedelic trip, it's just it felt like I was having a conversation with myself more so than my ego on psychedelics. And then when I came back to reality, I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's definitely true. I probably shouldn't be with this person. This is definitely an unhealthy relationship. And for example, I took 2 years of business commerce before I switched into computer science. It was one of the pushing factors for me. Although, again, that could have just been a complete misinterpretation of reality, because I was good at computer science and I enjoyed learning about it, but I'm now not finding that I enjoy applying it on a daily basis. Anyways,
So how was
go ahead.
DMT different from these other
Yeah,
experiences?
so what I was gonna say is, when I took LSD, I could see things like, for example, I could see a cat in the cloud that didn't exist, but I didn't actually ever see like an elephant walking across the table. You know, these things that people say that they see on psychedelic trips. Even at high doses, I never got any of that. But you definitely get that with DMT. So I guess it begins and it ends in 15 minutes if you take it in the pure form. I got it off the dark web, tested it. It was completely pure. I took it, and within about 10 seconds, it starts kicking in, and basically the edges of everything in the outside world kind of start collapsing in on themselves and turning into like a fractally pattern. But the thing that I
Like a
remember the
dream.
most at this point, like a dream, yeah, it's like you're falling asleep and going into a dream while you're awake. But anyways, the one thing, and I should mention as well that when you take it in its pure form, your brain is essentially in a similar state to a dream state. So you actually forget a lot of the trip. Like I'm grasping at straws and I'm trying to recreate a timeline of what happened, and I don't even know if that's completely possible. I just remember bits and pieces of it, right? But the first thing that I remember experiencing, and this happened within about 50 or 20 seconds as reality was falling in on itself, is a sense of familiarity with this experience. It was like it felt so familiar, and it felt like I'd been here before, and in a weird way, it felt like it was more real than the reality that I live in the day to day. That's probably the best way I could describe it. And I've never really felt a feeling like that, but I remember feeling it vividly, and like even making a mental note, be like, "What the heck's going on here?"
Well,
So after that happened, oh, go ahead.
well, I never tried psychedelics, but in terms of dreamlike experiences, I'm a vivid lucid dreamer myself, very easily.
I've always wanted to do that.
And one of the
I
things
too.
One of the things that I decided to do, instead of, well, of course, in the beginning, I did the usual, you know, flying, changing reality, being Superman, stuff like that. But after a while, I started to, I would sometimes just leave my house and sit on a bench and just envision someone sitting next to me on the bench. And I would start talking with that dream person or character that sat next to me about my life and just listen to what it may say, because I know that I'm actually talking to myself. And
Whoa.
yeah, sometimes interesting stuff came out, I do have to say. It wasn't
Next
always...
time you're lucid dreaming, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Next time you're lucid dreaming, you should try to ask one of these characters like a weird question. Like you can ask them what the time is, like where you are, or anything like that. They always give you very weird responses. It's very interesting.
I one time had a lucid dream.
Hello, Virgil.
Hey.
I once had a lucid dream, and a dream character walked up to me and said, "I know that this is a dream world, what happens to me when you wake up?" And I'm like, okay, well,
Whoa.
how do I respond with this?
Oh,
That was a very fun
one time when I
experience.
was in dream,
Enlightened.
Yeah.
It really confused me for a little bit. I asked one of the characters, I'm basically walking down to this area where there's like demons or stuff or whatever, but I was asking this character, if he knew he was in my dream, and, it sounds very simple, I can't even remember what exactly he said, but, he said something, and just the way he said it was like, just really like weird or whatever. I don't really know how to describe it. Probably the same feeling you had when that happened.
Well, for me, one of the reasons why I began to better for myself and sought help for myself, and also stopped with my addiction, was because of a lucid dream, where the same character would always show up. She doesn't talk, she just show up, and I experience a certain feeling that she gives that I tend to forget, but it lingers on me when I wake up. And it was because of this that I decided to search help for myself. And the funny thing is, about 1.5 months ago I saw her again. And well, it kind of spooked me, because previous time when I saw her, a lot of stuff changed in my life. For the positive, that is. So yeah, I was contemplating about that, like, was it just, you know, a reoccurring dream? Or could it be something more, you know? It was again a pleasant experience, but it kind of terrified me because it was the same individual.
You're having
I guess it terrifies you because you don't know the meaning, right? Don't understand the meaning fully.
Because even though the change,
That sounds like the only real scary part,
even though
right?
the change that I had was good the first time, I'm just change is always terrifying in a way, you could say. The more
Definitely.
I've had very similar dreams to you. Like I had a Hindu god Saraswati like come into my dreams like all the time, and like it was a pretty similar thing. I couldn't really remember what they were saying, but like I would constantly see like the same characters and stuff.
Hmm.
It was like a whole story in my dreams for some reason.
Do you guys want me to finish the trip report? Because it seems like this is a fun conversation too.
No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sure. So I had that overwhelming sense of familiarity that still, like, I think back on it and I can't fully reproduce it, but I still remember the feeling of being shocked. Like, I knew I'd been there before. And it felt incredibly real, even though I knew it wasn't in that moment, because I still, at some point, had my ego. I still knew who I was, but that was quickly falling apart, right? And then, like I said, everything kind of turned dreamlike. Closest way you could describe it is like going down a tunnel of fractal patterns, but I'm not myself anymore. It's just like I'm just something flying through. I remember looking down and not seeing my body. That was strange. And then I have no idea how long I was in that tunnel. There was all sorts of other beings as well. Like, I tried to communicate with them, but nothing really wanted to talk or anything like that. In fact, I remember one thing jumped into me, as weird as that is. I was like jumping off the walls, and it just jumped straight into me. I remember that. Anyways, I have I couldn't tell you how long I went down this fractal like tunnel. Could have been like 10 minutes, could have been an hour. If time felt different in a way that I can't fully remember. Anyways, after a while that ended and I came to a door. And I remember I was at this, it was a huge door of like light. For some reason it was like I was in a cloudy, it felt like I was on top of the clouds. I don't know what was behind this door, but I felt it was something that was important, something that was benevolent to a certain degree. It was probably just, a form of my own consciousness, but it's what I felt at the moment. And I remember just bowing down to it, and then an overwhelming sense of disappointment. And I still don't know if that came from me or if that came from this entity that I experienced, but that's all I really remember is just like a mixture of disappointment and shame. And I don't know the reason that I felt that. I've reflected on that a lot after the fact, but after that happened, everything just disappeared into nothing. And it was in a weird place where any thought that I'm not a great visual, like when I try to picture my old house in my head, it doesn't really happen. I can see the outline, and I maybe if I really focus, I can fill in the details. But this was different. It was like as soon as I thought of something, it immediately sprang into reality in front of my eyes. Like it emerged out of nothing into something. And it was weird. It was like I was playing God for a little while. I definitely wasn't myself. I didn't know who I was, but I was bringing up unconscious thoughts of experiences and places that I'd been to in my life. And I sort of noticed after a while, this is probably as it was wearing off, that I was essentially replaying in almost a chronological order my life, all the places I've been. And then at some point nearing the current moment that I'm at, I just sobered up and it was over. And it happens that fast. It's all within a matter of 10 or 15 minutes. And that was about it. And that was the last time I've done psychedelic drugs, a couple of years ago. It's enough to scare me off of them.
Well,
It was
I don't know if I was.
It was very memorable.
I don't know if I was on the same stuff, Scotto, but I just remember. I just noticed that it's 12:30.
Oh my god!
Definitely something went wrong with my keeping track of the time here. So I guess I'm just gonna go sleep and experience the real dream state. So
That sounds nice.
So
Before we go, Cassie,
sorry
man.
for. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you.
Well, we could go another hour if we start talking about that. So I will probably just not do this. But if you guys are interested in dream yoga, look up Andrew Olshek. He has some incredible books about this.
I was
And
just
actually,
gonna ask for a few
I'm
tips
trying-
on lucid dreaming. So, what was it that you said?
I'm-
Dream yoga?
I'm trying to get Andrew Olshek to come visit our sangha soon and maybe do an introduction to dream yoga.
I actually know a
So,
way how to do lucid dreaming because it's a trick that I learned myself and other people do it too to teach them. It's kind of simple.
so
actually.
maybe you could teach us, Casper, on one of those Fridays. Or now, but I won't
Seriously,
be here.
yeah.
So ciao,
Maybe it would
guys.
be a good Friday talk. Ciao, ciao. Oh, a disclosure before we end, I don't recommend that anybody does psychedelic drugs, ever. It could seriously mess up your consciousness. That was just one experience that I had. If
Yeah,
you're
I'm
here,
telling
you're on a better
everybody-
path. And...
I'm telling everybody Monday anyway. Ciao, Scotto.
Oh no!
Okay, take care, you
care.
guys. I'm gone.
Thanks,
I'm gone.
Zenkei.
Bye-bye.
So yeah, man. Before I head out, I got to get some of the deets. Unless you want to actually put on a Friday session. How did you start to learn how to lucid dream?
Well, it's kind of simple, and some people learned it this way as well. What I would,
Yeah,
what-
I'm gonna make a move as well. It's lunchtime over here. I'm getting pretty hungry. Alright,
That's
bye, guys.
1:30 over here. Thanks for coming by, man. We'll
It's
see you
like
again.
6:30 a.m. I haven't slept yet. Okay, it's okay.
You hit all the corners of the world.
I'll tell you what I did. And the most important thing is, you probably noticed when you dream that sometimes a reoccurring stuff that you do in life comes in dreams as well. You know, sometimes boring, mundane stuff, you know, stuff you've seen in real life.
Yep.
Well, the thing is that you make part of that you want to lucid dream becoming that reality as a mundane task. And one of the things that I did was every time throughout my day, every time I would see something that would surprise me or that I wasn't sure about, I would be like, look at my hands and count my fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because this is the fun fact about dreaming. There's something with dreams and numbers and amounts that doesn't make sense. So whenever I look at my hands in dreams, I either have like 4 fingers, 6 fingers. It doesn't make sense. It's like you notice that it isn't exactly the right amount of fingers you have. So throughout the day I would look like five times a day at my hands and count my fingers. And that's something that I would do every day, multiple times in a day. And one time I dreamt that I was doing said counting on my fingers, and suddenly I noticed, wait, hold on, why do I have 6 fingers? Oh my god, I actually did it.
Wow. I've
When you're in
heard
a
people
drunk-
say that you should like look at a watch, but I've never heard somebody suggest counting fingers. I don't wear a watch, so that was kind of dead in the water.
Yeah, you always have your fingers with you, you know. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll have to
That's-
start.
there's something
Trying that
there's
day to day.
something weird with, like, it's the same with reading books in dreams. You can actually read in dreams. I've done it, but the letters keep on jumping about, and there's something with multiple stuff appearing, like multiple cups, like, and the amount would constantly shift. It's like it can't. It's weird, and it's the same with 5 fingers. Like throughout my day, I would just look at my hand, count my fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one time this mundane task appeared in my dream where I looked at my fingers and I was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, hold on, 7. Wait, holy shit! And since then, that's how I did it.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely gonna have to try that, and I think Zenkai's right. I think there'd be a lot of people who'd be interested if you wanted to just spend 10 or 15 minutes talking about it some Friday.
lucid dreaming. Yeah.
That's a really cool ability, man. I have not met somebody who's actually able to lucid dream. Like, I've seen videos and I've heard people say that it's possible, but it's a really rare skill.
Yeah, but oftentimes those people, especially in those YouTube videos, always do like, you have to listen to this special music while falling asleep. You have to do these weird things while you fall. It's like, sometimes I'm like, do these people leave a lucid dream, or did they just search spiritual things from the internet or something, you know?
It's probably like that worked for one person one time.
Yeah.
And that guy was able to somehow prove it, so that's now, you know, the method that everyone uses. Where it sounds like you found a much simpler way.
Yeah, well, it's kind of it's something. Mundane tasks in real life tend to appear in dreams, so the checkup, if you're in reality or in dreams, need to become mundane as well, so that it will eventually appear as well when you dream.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, how long would you say that you kept up the practice of counting your fingers day to day before you actually hit your first lucid dream? Because I assume you started doing that with the intention to lucid dream, right? Or is it some other reason?
It was partly my intention to lucid dream, because when my father died, I had insomnia and I would have terrifying nightmares. And I decided to learn lucid dreaming to combat my nightmares. And also because partly because I would use it sometimes to conjure up my father and talk to him in my dreams, so I could ask him the questions I can't ask him in real life anymore. But at a certain point in my life, I looked into it too much, and because it all felt so real, I was
just gonna ask that.
Yes,
how it felt while you were there.
Yes, you have taste in dreams. I have felt the heat of the sun, the cold of the wind. All your senses work, you know. Some things people do sometimes in lucid dream is, you know, having sex with their famous movie star that they always, you know.
Yeah. Yep.
But you know, those things all work. But the thing is, when you're conjuring up like people that died, like my father, a part of you wants to form a connection and conjure him up every day. And the issue with doing that is, because it's my brain conjuring it up, eventually I tricked myself that my father might be real there somewhere. And depending in my mood, my father would suddenly change behaviors in my dream when I conjured him up. And I would start to lose control. And I would say it's like a lucid nightmare.
That makes sense. I could imagine it would be moderately depressing when you wake up as well.
Yeah, because
you realize
you only want to hear comfortable things, you know. And sometimes I would conjure up my father and he would be drunk. Why? Because who knows, maybe my mind was fucked at that moment, and that's how it was conjured up. But it's like VR chat where some people get addicted. I had an issue that I wanted to find answers for questions in real life in my dreams on a constant basis, and I lost the sight that it's still a dream at the end of the day. That's something important. You gotta remember, it's not your father. No matter how real.
Yeah, that makes sense. Powerful stuff, man. I'm definitely going to be practicing that now. I appreciate the warning as well, because I could see that happening to me too. Trying to find more meaning than there really was about the experience.
I'm not saying there can't be any meaning, but you have to keep a proper distance.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Find
is there any meaning that you don't understand yourself? Like, are you able to come to conclusions that you wouldn't if you reflected, very carefully while you're awake?
Well,
That's what I have to wonder.
I would have said that the answers I got from the characters in my dreams were answers I had in myself all along, but that because of abstractions like my self-image and my
your ego, as they say, yeah.
That didn't come forward, So it feels
Yeah.
like you can definitely learn, but you also have to keep a distance and know it's still a dream at the end of the day. Instead of getting
Sounds a lot like what people and what I just said. People who take large amounts of psychedelics, they have a conversation with themselves. It kind of sounds like you're doing that. You're hearing it from someone else's perspective, but you know it to be true because you feel it deep down in yourself because it was your thought at the end of the day.
Yeah, but that's it's as simple as that, I would just like while I was counting my fingers, I would close my fingers one after the other that I was counting, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, multiple times through the day, and until I discovered I had 7 fingers, and then I was like, okay, let me count again, and then I had only 4
There's
fingers.
so many things I want to test. How does time feel? How long does the dream feel? Well, after you've realized it until you wake up, and does the ending of the dream, can you do that consciously, or do you just wake up at some random point?
Well, I feel like, first of all, in terms of time, I'd say it's like this. Let's say I dream of this room, let's say I transport myself in this room, this small cafe here. I think I would be able to lucid dream for like a good 15 minutes. But let's say if I would lucid dream this entire world, then I probably would wake up in 5 minutes. I feel it's something...
Really?
I felt with my lucid dreaming, the more I conjure up details and the more I add stuff, the faster I wake up. Like...
I think that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Our perception of time is related to the processing power of our brain, and if it's fully committed to building a reality around you, then you'd assume that
that's why often when I was going to
quicken the pace of time.
That's why often when I was going to talk with my father, I would conjure it in a small house, so I would have enough time.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
In terms of dream ending, you kind of feel it coming because everything starts to blur together, in my opinion. Sensation begins to lose itself. It's like, everything gets blurry. And eventually things get dark and then you open your eyes.
Have you ever had like a dream, like it started off where like the other one ended, like kind of like a storyline or something like?
Oh yeah, I've had dreams. I've had lucid dreams of dreams that I used to have as a child that I forgot, and that I continued said dream as an adult, but when I was lucid, and I'm like, oh god, okay, this is weird, but yeah, it's weird. It's like memories from the past suddenly came flooding back.
Do you still have dreams where you're not lucid? Like where you don't put your hands? Or are you almost always?
No. Luckily, I had a lot of insomnia as well when I still had my problem with addiction, with alcohol and stuff. And my insomnia caused a lot of instabilities in my dreams that also caused me to go lucid, and it was at the point that I would be lucid almost every night. And let me tell you, the last thing you want after a day that you go in your bed and you close your eyes That you suddenly wake up in your dream world, in your bed, in your dream, and you're like, I don't want to do shit, I just want to close my eyes. Fuck off.
I believe that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I feel like I've gotten close one time. I remember, I don't know why, but I was floating around in space.
Mm.
And I remember just being absolutely petrified that, like, is this my reality now? Am I stuck here forever? And then I remember being in the dream and being like, well, wait a second. I must have known something that came before. And then I woke up before I actually realized that I was lucid dreaming.
Huge certain spikes in feelings can wake you up as well, like huge spike of fear. But also,
that's probably what it was.
And sometimes I woke up and talking to my father because I became too emotional, so I woke up. It's the same thing when this is something interesting. You know, when people sometimes try to experiment sexually with dreams, they often tend to wake up before the fun parts ends because, you know, the build-up makes them wake
too
up.
Excited. Yeah. I was gonna ask, so when this happens, when you wake up because of some emotional state, do you wake up in the morning or in the middle of the night?
I had a very not good sleeping pattern, so it didn't matter at what timing it was, if morning or night.
That was really awesome, man. I appreciate all the tips. It is it's 2 a.m. here. I thought this was only going to be an hour session, so I should probably call it too.
If you're going to lucid dream suddenly after this, I'm going to
well, I'm going to start counting
I'm going to
the fingers on my hand, and if I do, man, I'll tell you. You'll be the first one to know. I'll wake up and open Discord.
I'll become like a guru myself.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be your first disciple. I'm serious, though, on that Friday teachings things. This is a really fascinating conversation, and I guarantee there'd be other people interested. 100%.
Actually, might be. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. And you too, Niels. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you, dude.
Yeah, alright, I'm out of here. See you guys, I guess Friday or Monday?
See ya.
Till then.
I'll probably be there Monday.
Night. Sounds good.